It appears we have double trouble on the horizon as two new winter storms are beginning to form. We will discuss who can expect snow and ice in today's video. A warm welcome to you all. Happy Sunday, November 30th. We are ending the month on a very snowy, icy, and cold note for many of us, and I can tell you that new areas are going to experience that winter weather in the coming days, followed by another storm I am watching closely for about a week from now. That storm could once again bring snow and ice farther to the south. So we have a great deal to talk about in today's video, a lot to break down, and that is precisely what we will be doing. If you are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald, and I'm a meteorologist at WCCB Charlotte. If you have not already done so, I invite you to like the video, subscribe, and press the bell for the latest notifications. Doing so will help. It helps keep you weather-wise and well-informed. It is completely free and does not cost you a penny. It is simply a wonderful way to keep up to date with the ever-changing weather data and my professional analysis of it. All right, let us waste no time today and get right into the forecast. Next to me is the latest output from our European computer model, which many of us call old reliable, and for good reason. That is one of the reasons I am showing it to you. But please do not be mistaken. We do have some disagreement between this model and others that we will be discussing throughout the video today. Either way, the European model is showing a winter storm beginning now for some folks and evolving, especially into tomorrow and into your Tuesday and Wednesday, followed by another system. You can see it right here moving south and beginning to develop by this next upcoming weekend, which is the first full weekend of December. So the active pattern is continuing. I have been telling you for weeks now that I believe December will be quite a cold and snowy month for many areas. The end of November has already started that process, and December looks to carry it on with what is to come. Now, looking at the current situation, we already have the leftovers of one winter storm. You may recall we received significant snowfall over the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. If you saw snow, please let me know how much you received in the comments. I would love to hear those reports out of places like Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, or anywhere else that saw the snow. But for today, that snow is now moving up into the interior Northeast. You can see it is snowing quite steadily in portions of northern Maine today, into Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, and even down toward portions of Pennsylvania. We have some leftover lake effect snow back in Michigan and some good old-fashioned rain along the Interstate 95 corridor and down into the southeast. I will tell you, though, a lot of folks right now who are seeing rain will have an opportunity to get snowfall with our next storm as cold air begins to move in behind this one. That will be one of the major talking points coming up next. Speaking of that next storm, here it is. You can see it is already getting organized over the Four Corners region. We have snow out towards the Rockies. We are seeing it in Salt Lake City, back down into Cedar City, Utah, and even down into Monticello. There it is beginning to develop. So where does it go from here, and who gets the snow? Well, that is an excellent question. You can see the process that will unfold here on our upper level atmospheric map. We have a trough digging down into the Rockies with a well-defined spin associated with it. This is occurring over the Four Corners. That is what is helping to create lift in the atmosphere and get that low pressure to develop. Eventually, this will move to the east, and you can see it working its way through the southern plains, through the Ohio Valley, with a great deal of rotational energy moving through the northeast. There is a lot of energy with this system by the time we get into this coming Tuesday. That means the low pressure system is going to be strengthening and snowfall totals will be rising. Let us time it out for you. Well, our current storm is beginning to move out, which you can see on our latest high-resolution rapid refresh model. And I do mean the very latest. This model run just became available, so you are seeing the latest and greatest data as that system works on out of here. But you will start to notice our next storm approaching. It will move out of the Rockies and into the Central Plains, showing a band of snow developing over Kansas and portions of Nebraska. We could even see some icing back down towards Oklahoma as early as tomorrow morning for your Monday. So please be careful of that. I also expect we could see some light freezing rain, sleet, or maybe even a bit of a wintry mix down into Little Rock and portions of Arkansas. However, it looks like it will be mainly snow up into Kansas and central and northern Missouri. We could see some ice down in the Ozarks. For those areas, this is going to be more of a quick-hitting event, what I would call a light to moderate winter weather event, and nothing that you have not seen before. It will still bring impacts, however, so it is important to keep that in mind. By your Monday afternoon and evening, snow will begin to spread into portions of Iowa. Chicago will once again be getting snowfall. Hopefully you have the Christmas tree up by now if you missed out on the last storm, because this one will definitely provide those festive feelings. We could even see some snow. This includes into southern Wisconsin. Then, by the time we get into overnight Monday and into the very early morning hours of Tuesday, approaching the midnight hour, it will be snowing in Indianapolis and across much of the state of Indiana and Illinois. We will have a bit of a wintry mess here, even down into the Ozarks of Arkansas, getting close to a wintry mix in Memphis. But I think it will stay mostly north of the city. At least to start. It could begin as rain, then maybe the cold air will catch up to that rain and change things over. By the time you get well into the early morning hours of your Tuesday, take a look at that rain-snow line. It is trying to press southward as another shot of cold air catches up to our low-pressure system, which is now developing down near the Gulf coastline. Because of that, it could start as a bit of a battleground in places like Louisville, but I think it will change over to a moderate, wet snowfall. This will likely produce those big snowflakes we often see with a setup like this. Because of that, this is going to be a heavy snow. So we will need to watch for some power outages, as it is going to be quite heavy. So please keep that in mind throughout Indiana, Ohio, and into Kentucky. As the storm develops, it will begin to move up the Appalachian chain by 5 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. It will be a rainy day for Atlanta, Greenville, Spartanburg, and Charlotte. It is going to be a very cold rain to start your Tuesday, so be sure to have your jackets ready. You are going to want to start the car and let it defrost a little bit. It will not be icy down there, but it will be plenty cold enough that you are going to feel it when you walk out the door. We could see some ice, however, in the mountains of North Carolina and into the mountains of the Virginias. It will be all snow in Ohio, and it will start snowing in Pittsburgh by Tuesday morning and into the afternoon. And then it is going to be a very close call. If you are watching from Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, you could start as a bit of an icy mix and then switch over to that blue color on the map, which indicates snowfall. We expect to change over to snow on the backside of the system through much of Kentucky and into Pikeville. You could get some back-end snow in Nashville. That would not surprise me. We would not see large snowfall totals there. Nevertheless, it could happen. It will be all rain for the Carolinas and Virginia, outside of, again, the higher terrains where it could start as ice before changing over to some good old-fashioned rain. As I said, though, the Interstate 95 corridor will likely start as a quick icy mix, then change over to rain for Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. The farther north you get, however, the tougher the forecast becomes along that rain-snow line. I think it will be all snow in places like Scranton, Harrisburg, State College, the Finger Lakes, the Catskills, and the Adirondacks. New York City could start as a wintry mix before transitioning to some rainfall. As we continue on, it looks like mainly rain for Long Island, though it could start as a wintry mix before changing to rain along the coastline. This also applies to the coasts of Connecticut and Rhode Island. I will tell you where the forecast is most tricky, though. It is right in this area of Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, southern Vermont, and New Hampshire. That is where we start to see some significant differences in our model data as to where that rain-snow line ends up, and you will see that here in just a moment. I also think for Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, especially the down east areas of Maine, this could be a fairly significant winter storm for you, at least for early season standards during the first couple of days of December. Let's switch over to the NAM model now, because it goes out far enough in time that we can actually use it. The NAM is picking up on that potential quite well, showing what I think will be a very heavy band of snow. It is going to develop here, or at least be moderate to heavy, right along the cold side of that rain-snow line. If I had to pick an area that is in a very good position right now, it would be western and central Massachusetts and extreme southern Vermont and New Hampshire. As we continue this forward in time, the down east areas of Maine are looking quite snowy for your Tuesday afternoon and your Tuesday evening. For Boston, Hartford, and Providence, this remains a very tough forecast regarding exactly where that rain-snow line ends up. I think you will probably see rain at least during parts of this storm, but you could start as snow and you might try to end as snow. Some of our data, however, keeps you as snow almost the entire time, including some of our more reliable models. With that said, let us dive into the potential snowfall totals and break this down in a little more depth. All right, let us get to the important numbers, which are the potential snowfall and ice totals. We will start with just the blend of models. I think it is doing a reasonably good job here showing that band of snow developing for your Monday afternoon, which could produce a good 2 to 4 inches. That would be from Chicago through southern Iowa and into northern Missouri. For areas south of there, towards St. Louis, southern Illinois, and southern Indiana, it will probably be more of a 1 to 3 inch event. That is just the blend of models, though. Also, at the western shores of Michigan, you have lake effect snow ongoing now, and you have more snow potentially on the way. It has been a very snowy start to the season for you. Looking out that way, if you examine the European model, that is what I am going to compare things to. I will show you the blend, then I will show you the European model just to see where some things might not line up. The European model is just lower on totals in general, but it does have that band of snow up here into northern Missouri, into northern Illinois, and southern Iowa as well. But generally speaking, you can see that I think the blend of models is a pretty fair bet here for a nice light to moderate snow event in this part of the country. As you go farther south into the Ohio Valley, I think we will see good snowfall totals in Louisville. I would expect 1 to 3 inches there, and the same thing for Cincinnati. As you go farther south into Kentucky, though, the less cold air you have to work with. You are likely going to see mostly rain, but you could end with snow as that colder air catches up. So please watch for a brief dusting of upwards of an inch there through the rest of the state on the tail end of this. But the better totals are going to be up into Ohio, where much of the state is going to see 1 to 3 or even 2 to 4 inches of snow. Now, further south from there into areas of Tennessee, we see a similar situation. It will be mostly rain. A very quick dusting of snow on the tail end would not surprise me. If you look at the European model, in fact, where is the European model? There it is. I will show you the ice outlook next. The European model is a little bit more enthusiastic about that snow on the back end. You can see it brings perhaps 1 to 2 inches right through the heart of Kentucky. Some of that even tries to sneak down into the Nashville area. So it is a little bit more aggressive there, but still, I think the blended model offers a pretty fair assessment. Now, what about ice? How much ice can we expect out of this? I am watching central Arkansas around the Little Rock area. We could get a quick glaze up to 1/10 of an inch at the start of this event tomorrow morning. Please be very careful if you have any plans to be outside. We could see some very icy areas, especially on those bridges and overpasses. So please keep that in mind. This is not going to be a major ice storm, and we are not expecting to see widespread power outages. But just remember that things could definitely get slick out there to start the day tomorrow. Now, for the Northeast, this is where the forecast becomes a little bit more interesting and you start to see some differences. Here is the blend of the models. You begin to notice a very sharp divide as we normally see this time of year with any sort of winter storm. For Philadelphia, not a whole lot is showing up. For Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, not much is showing up either. Some of the models do bring you a little bit of snow, but the much better totals here on the blend at least are up towards Scranton and into the Hudson Valley. This includes western and central Massachusetts, the down east areas of Maine, and into southern Vermont and New Hampshire. This corridor that I have circled is where the models keep the bullseye of the storm. It still shows a 2 to 4 inch average in Boston. And then, of course, you start to see very sharp changes. Along the Connecticut coastline, almost nothing. But you go further north towards Massachusetts, and some isolated spots could be mixing in nearly half a foot of snowfall. Here is what is showing up, at least on the blend of models. For New York City, it is the same story, not a significant amount. You go up north of the city, and you start to see better accumulations. That is the blend, however. Let us show you some other models, including the European, which has a bit of a different solution that it is really sticking to and has done so over the past couple of days. Here is the brand new afternoon run, of the European model, and it tells a completely different story for some areas. Take a look at this. It has nearly a foot of snow in northern Rhode Island and about half a foot up towards Boston. If you go back to the blend of models, that is a completely different story. So we are seeing some differences in the models. I do not want you to look at the blend and assume this is exactly what is going to happen. Now, this is the best forecast to give because it puts everything together and helps eliminate some of the error. But there are some solutions like the European model that are a lot more exciting for folks here in southern New England, bringing almost half a foot through a lot of Connecticut. As I said, for Rhode Island, at least the northern half of the state, it shows big snowfall totals. You know, it predicts a good half a foot for Boston and actually brings the heaviest snow further south. So it would not be as big of a storm for the down east areas in southern Vermont and New Hampshire. You would still see a good 3 to 5 inches, do not get me wrong, but you would see less than half a foot plus totals up that way. It also gets that band of heavy snow into northern New Jersey. If you are north of Interstate 80 in New Jersey, half a foot is what the European model shows, and only, 50 miles north of Philadelphia up into the suburbs, it brings a good 2 to 4 inch snowfall. Still not a lot for New York City, still not much for Philadelphia, and, maybe a little bit more down towards Baltimore. But either way, I think down here, we are not expecting a lot from this. If you are in Philadelphia, and we will even say from New York City, southbound on Interstate 95, you could definitely see winter weather out of this, but it is just not going to be a big event. Could the next one be big? We will see. I do see another one on the horizon. Obviously, there is still plenty to figure out there. Here is another model. This is the Canadian model. I think the Canadian is probably the safer bet that I would go with right now. It shows significant snow for central and western Massachusetts, southern Vermont, and New Hampshire. Isolated spots could get a foot. Now, that might be a bit much, but I do think that is where the bullseye of this storm will end up, and it shows a lot less for Boston. And unfortunately, if you are in Boston, I believe that is probably the case. Now, could you get a quick thumping of snow on the front side and receive a couple of inches? Maybe. Yes, that is definitely possible. I just think a layer of warmer air is going to take over in a lot of these cities down here during the middle of the storm, but you could start as snow and end as snow. It is that halfway point that gets a little less exciting. The GFS model is almost a bit of a blend here between the Canadian and the European, and you get the idea. It is a sharp cutoff, folks. I mean, you could get almost nothing in Rhode Island, and then you go up towards central Massachusetts and have a foot of snow, and that is just the way it goes here around wintertime. And as I said, I think going back, the blend here is probably an okay bet. If I had to pick one of the operational models, I think the Canadian is probably the closest, but we will watch the European model. It has been sticking to its guns. And do not rule out a scenario like this where some of us further south and east do get a pretty good surprise out of this system. As for ice up this way, I am not expecting a lot of it. We could start with a little bit of ice again. I believe further down south towards West Virginia, and western Maryland, you could see more of a glaze to 1/10 of an inch or more of ice. Into the northeast, perhaps a glaze would be the worst case scenario. All right, that is the storm coming up. We probably spent a bit too much time on that one. Let me give you a very quick teaser for another storm that could be on the horizon. Excuse me, let's talk about what that next storm may have in store. Well, the train of energy continues, and the cold air is also going to continue to dive into the eastern United States. It is going to come in shots, and the question really just becomes, for whom does the cold air line up with the energy? Who will see that overlapping? Well, here we go. By Wednesday, and this is really overnight, Tuesday into Wednesday, here is our northeast storm. That is the one that produces all the chaos I just showed you. Then comes another piece of energy, another trough diving down into the Rockies. This is round 3, really. We had the big storm a couple of days ago. We have this one coming up, and then we have got another one. I see it by next weekend, starting once again in the Rockies, diving south, and then the energy gets pulled east with cold air lurking to the north. Now, here is the thing, folks, and I will tell you this much that we are going to need to figure out. Where in the world will the rain-snow line set up with this one? Again, I think it is going to be a bit of a challenge to forecast. Let me show you a couple of models, though. Here are the GFS and the European. We will show you the differences and the agreements. There is the energy. You see all sorts of rain down south into the Gulf Coast. You have got cold, high pressure to the north helping to bring down cooler air. Now, if this were January, This could be a really good setup for snow and ice down along the Interstate 85 corridor of the Southeast. For your Atlantas, your Greenvilles, your Spartanburgs, and your Charlottes of the world. However, it's early December. Not quite February. I am not planning on time traveling either. But because of that, we have a little bit less cold air than you would expect during the heart of winter. So the GFS, and let me immediately start with this, is not a forecast, especially for all my friends in Charlotte who are going to watch this and go off telling the world a snowstorm is coming this weekend, because that is not my forecast, and I doubt we will see that. But nonetheless, the GFS does show that cold air getting into place and creates a bit of a classic Interstate 85 North winter weather event in the Southeast. You have got snow in the mountains and the foothills, especially north of Interstate 40. There is probably a bit of a wintry mix in the Interstate 85 corridor, and it is a Southeast and Mid-Atlantic winter weather event of sorts. Maybe not a full-blown storm, and then it brings some light precipitation up into the Northeast and a whole other clipper system by, about 7 to 8 days from now. That is what the GFS model shows. Unfortunately, though, the GFS likes to overdo these things from time to time. Here is the European model. Now, the European, I will completely agree with you, has the energy there. It has the cold air. But does the cold air get far enough south that southeastern cities like Charlotte and Greensboro get winter weather out of it? Right now, that is a less likely scenario. It is not impossible, but it is less likely. The European model shows a freezing cold rain. Now, I say freezing rain, but I probably should not say that because that is its own thing. A very cold rain. How about that? Rain with temperatures between 35 and 40 degrees is what it shows in Charlotte, Greenville, and Spartanburg. It does get some snow into the mountains of North Carolina. I believe that. That makes sense, I would say, climatologically speaking. It shows another snow event right in the Ohio Valley. If you are hopefully not tired of snow in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, this has been your winter so far to start things off. It suggests a winter weather event for the Appalachian chain and another northeast winter storm, but with a completely different track, a completely different amplitude, and a completely different scenario. Really, all we know about this storm right now is that we have got energy and we have got cold air. Who that lines up for? Well, the best thing to look at is the ensembles, as is usually the case. So let us end things by taking a look at those and showing you who has the best chance by next weekend to see some winter weather. All right, as usual, this is the chance of seeing accumulating snowfall within a 24-hour time period. What does it show? Well, we are going to focus on that final storm that we have talked about today. That is for this coming Thursday. That is when this is, at least this coming Thursday. And then into the weekend, snow chances are again looking good down in the Four Corners region. Here comes the system. A pretty good shot at snow once again for Kansas, Oklahoma, and your Missouris of the world. I say Missouris like there is more than one of them. You get the point. It moves down into the Ohio Valley and then does show a signal, in fact, not a terrible one, down into what we will call the foothills of North Carolina, specifically north of Interstate 40 here, and then up into the western portions of Virginia and West Virginia itself. There is a signal there for sure, and then it also shows that signal into the northeast. Now, please remember, the primary forecast model did not show much activity. The collection of models, however, indicates a good possibility of snow for many of the same areas currently in the path, with higher chances for the Interstate 95 corridor than our current storm, except perhaps for Boston, where the outcome remains quite uncertain. You can see that pattern working its way through. So these possibilities are certainly appearing on the European model and its related forecast. It is simply a matter of determining for which communities, at least for the most specific details, but we can see the general idea. As for the GFS family of models, you can see the Four Corners region will receive some winter weather, but honestly, for those who enjoy the snow, these particular models are not showing very much. Even along the Interstate 85 corridor, where one model showed snow reaching into South Carolina, there is only about a 5 to 10% chance of that actually occurring. We can see here that the likelihood is low. It simply does not appear very probable right now for my friends that far to the south. However, for places such as Greensboro, Asheville, and Boone, and heading northbound, I could certainly see this developing into a significant winter weather event, particularly concerning ice. If we look at the European forecast system, you can see, and actually this is not the correct map I wanted to share with you. Let me go to the right one. There we are. This map shows the potential for freezing rain. As you can see, the chances for Monday into Tuesday are present, and then you can observe the possibility growing. There is certainly a chance for the southern regions, although the indication has dropped slightly since yesterday. As I mentioned, I would say the Triad area up into Blacksburg, Virginia, Boone, portions of West Virginia, and northbound along the spine of the Appalachian chain have a much higher probability of seeing winter weather from this system.
I would place Charlotte at about a 10 to 20% chance for any kind of freezing rain or ice to occur next weekend.
For Greenville and Spartanburg, we will keep the forecast about the same. It is unlikely to happen in Atlanta. I am not seeing it for Columbia with this particular system, but we will continue to monitor it and keep you fully informed. That is the situation as I see it right now, folks. That is the latest information I have for you. I have a couple of final things to mention. This video has run longer than I had anticipated, but I will be broadcasting live later today, this evening, as you are watching this. We will likely begin at 6 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Time, and continue from there. We are going to carefully analyze this winter storm for you that is occurring over the next couple of days and provide another look at the one arriving next week. I will be joined once again by BGWX. If you watched our last live stream, you will certainly remember him. He is a genuine weather expert, especially when it comes to the Northeast. So if you live in that region and would like to know what Boston might expect or some of those other areas where the forecast is challenging, I do hope you will tune in tonight. It will be an excellent source for that kind of information. Of course, you can always watch the recording afterward, which should be available by about 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening Eastern Time.
All right, everyone, I wish you a very pleasant day. Please stay safe. And for those of you who enjoy it, you can hope for snow. I look forward to seeing you all this evening.